The internet, a tool for cat videos, online shopping, and ordering illegal narcotics? Shocking, I know. But before you grab your pitchforks and demand we return to the halcyon days of dial-up, let's talk about Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road. Ulbricht, a seemingly ordinary guy with a physics degree, had a vision. He saw the potential of the dark web, a hidden part of the internet, not for evil but for, well, mostly evil. But hey, at least it was efficient evil. In 2011 he launched Silk Road, an online marketplace operating like a black market eBay. It became the go-to destination for buying and selling everything from marijuana to heroin, all done anonymously using Bitcoin. It was the Wild West of e-commerce, if the Wild West had better customer reviews and less dysentery. But like a cowboy movie, this story had a showdown brewing. The feds were onto Ulbricht, and they didn't need a posse to bring him down. Just a good VPN and some digital handcuffs. Imagine the convenience of Amazon Prime, but instead of ordering a new toaster, you're scoring some high-grade Afghan Kush. That was Silk Road's business model: anonymity, user reviews, and a strict no-violence policy. It was like Etsy for criminals, but less likely to involve handcrafted soaps, and more likely to involve the DEA kicking in your door. Silk Road operated on the Tor network, a maze-like system designed to make online activity untraceable. Think of it as a digital invisibility cloak, but instead of hiding you from Death Eaters, it hid you from the FBI. For a while anyway. The site used Bitcoin, a cryptocurrency that allowed for anonymous transactions. This made it difficult for authorities to track the flow of money, which, let's be honest, is like kryptonite to law enforcement. At its peak, Silk Road was processing millions of dollars worth of transactions daily. It was the ultimate black market success story, proving that if you build a convenient platform for illegal activity, the customers will come. But so will the cops eventually. Ulbricht, operating under the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, thought he was untouchable, but the long arm of the law has a knack for acquiring really long Wi-Fi passwords. The FBI, in a sting operation worthy of a Hollywood thriller, managed to infiltrate Silk Road. They tracked down servers, followed Bitcoin trails, and even used good old-fashioned undercover work to build their case. Eventually, they caught Ulbricht red-handed in a San Francisco library, logged into Silk Road. They probably also found his overdue library book finds, which, let's be honest, is a more embarrassing crime. The evidence was overwhelming. Server logs, incriminating messages, and enough Bitcoin to make a Silicon Valley tech bro blush. Ulbricht was charged with money laundering, drug trafficking, and a whole host of other crimes that basically screamed, "You really messed up this time." Ulbricht's trial was a media circus, with some hailing him as a digital freedom fighter, and others calling him a drug kingpin who deserved a one-way ticket to prison. The jury, however, went with the latter, finding him guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Ouch. A life sentence for running a website? That's harsher than my grandma's fruitcake. The severity of Ulbricht's sentence sparked outrage among some, who argued that it was disproportionate to his crimes. After all, he never actually sold drugs himself, he just provided the platform. It's like giving Henry Ford life in prison for every DUI caused by a Model T. Others argued that Ulbricht's sentence was a necessary deterrent, sending a message that the dark web wasn't a lawless playground. They claimed that he knowingly facilitated the sale of dangerous drugs, putting lives at risk. Basically, he was the digital equivalent of that friend who always knows a guy who can get you something, but this time, the something could land you in the ER. The case raised complex questions about the nature of crime in the digital age. When does running a website cross the line into criminal conspiracy? Should we hold platform providers responsible for the actions of their users? These are questions that philosophers, legal scholars, and frankly, anyone who's ever used the internet should be pondering. But before we get too lost in the philosophical weeds, let's talk about a certain someone who decided to throw a wrench into this already complex legal saga: Donald J. Trump. Now let's be clear, Donald Trump loved to pardon people, especially if they were controversial figures who had shown him unwavering loyalty. It was like his version of a reality TV show, but instead of roses, he handed out get-out-of-jail-free cards. Trump's decision to pardon Ulbricht, however, was a real head-scratcher. It wasn't just that he pardoned a convicted criminal, it was that he pardoned someone who represented everything Trump claimed to be against: drugs, online anonymity, and, well, intelligence. Some speculated that Trump was swayed by the pleas of Silicon Valley libertarians who saw Ulbricht as a martyr for the cause of online freedom. Others whispered that Trump, with his penchant for shady business dealings, might have had a soft spot for a fellow entrepreneur who pushed the boundaries of legality. Whatever the reason, Trump's pardon of Ulbricht sent shockwaves through the legal system and ignited a firestorm of controversy. It was a decision that would have far-reaching implications for the war on drugs, the justice system, and the future of the internet itself. The reaction to Ulbricht's pardon was about as divided as a Thanksgiving dinner with my family after I bring up politics. Libertarians who champion individual liberty and limited government were ecstatic. They saw Ulbricht's pardon as a victory against what they considered government overreach and a draconian war on drugs. To them, Ulbricht was a hero who dared to challenge the status quo, a digital Che Guevara fighting for the right to buy and sell whatever the hell you want online. Law enforcement officials, on the other hand, were less than thrilled. They argued that Trump's pardon undermined years of hard work and sent a dangerous message to criminals that the dark web was open for business. They warned that Ulbricht's release would embolden other would-be drug lords and lead to a surge in online drug trafficking. The public was equally divided, with some praising Trump's bold move, and others condemning it as a reckless abuse of power. It was a debate that went beyond the specifics of Ulbricht's case, and touched on fundamental questions about the role of government, the limits of personal freedom, and the future of justice in a digital age. Emboldening the dark web? Ulbricht's pardon raised a chilling question. Would it embolden the dark web, turning it into a digital Wild West where criminals could operate with impunity? Law enforcement agencies warned of a potential surge in online criminal activity, with drug traffickers, hackers, and other shady figures emboldened by the perception that they could act with impunity. They argued that Ulbricht's pardon sent a dangerous message, that the dark web was a safe haven for criminals. Others argued that the dark web, like any technology, was a neutral tool that could be used for good or evil. They pointed out that the dark web also provided a platform for whistleblowers, dissidents, and others seeking to communicate anonymously and evade censorship. The reality, of course, was far more nuanced. The dark web was a complex ecosystem with a diverse range of users and activities. It could be a tool for liberation or oppression, a marketplace for both legal and illegal goods and services. The challenge, as always, was to find a balance between protecting individual freedoms and preventing harm. Ulbricht's pardon reignited the debate over the war on drugs, a decades-long effort to combat drug use and trafficking that many argued had failed. Critics argued that the war on drugs had done little to curb drug use while leading to mass incarceration, particularly among minority communities. They pointed to Ulbricht's case as an example of the government's misguided priorities, arguing that resources would be better spent on treatment and harm reduction strategies rather than prosecuting non-violent drug offenders. Supporters of the war on drugs argued that it was necessary to stem the tide of drug addiction and the violence associated with drug trafficking. They pointed to the dangers of drugs like heroin and fentanyl, arguing that law enforcement was essential to keeping these substances off the streets. The debate over the war on drugs was unlikely to be resolved anytime soon. It was a complex issue with no easy answers, one that reflected deeply held beliefs about individual responsibility, the role of government, and the nature of addiction itself. The Ulbricht case highlighted the challenges of achieving justice in the digital age, where the lines between physical and virtual worlds were increasingly blurred. How do we define and prosecute crimes committed in cyberspace? How do we balance individual freedoms with the need to protect society from harm? The rise of the dark web, cryptocurrencies, and other technologies had created new opportunities for both criminals and law enforcement. It was a cat-and-mouse game, with each side constantly developing new tools and strategies to outmaneuver the other. The challenge for the legal system was to adapt to this rapidly evolving landscape while upholding the principles of due process and fairness. It was a daunting task, one that required collaboration between lawmakers, technologists, and legal experts. The Ulbricht case was a stark reminder that the digital revolution was not just about innovation and progress, but also about grappling with the unintended consequences of our technological creations. It was a reminder that as we ventured further into the digital frontier, we needed to do so with both eyes open, mindful of the potential for both good and evil that lay ahead.